Welcome to the Temple of Flame. On today, Big Black Lights, we take a look at this. And what this is from Butterfly Bakery is the Chipotle Squash. Hot shoosh. We got Quill Hill Farms here. I don't know what that is. Another something there. Smoked chipotle, savored tomatoes, sweet roasted butternut squash. I'm a big fan of squash. And anytime I see it in a hot sauce, I'm always really intrigued to see what is done with it. Generally, I wouldn't get a hot sauce as low as a Chipotle most of the time. But because of the squash nature, I was like, well, and Butterfly, of course. I'm like, yeah, we better try that. We better go on over there and just see what that is all about. So we've got burgers, grilled carrots, or bean chili. It's a comforting hug for any meal. They're not immune to the idea. So many other sauce companies are that it's just use the sauce on everything. And that is just not always the case. But we start with red serranos. We've got white vinegar, smoked red jalapeno, tomato, and roasted butternut squash and salt. So this is a lot of words for 6 ingredients. But I mean, that's kind of nice that they are trying to give their propers to everybody. I don't mind that. You have to kind of sift through all of that. And I mean, are we going to know the difference between, for instance, a Quill Hill Farm red jalapeno versus a Honeyfield Farm red jalapeno? I mean, probably not. Or a Dog River tomato versus a different tomato? I mean, also probably not. But, I appreciate the sort of community vibe thing that they're trying to do here. All right, and it's a thick sauce. Let's get it out of the neck so we can pour it. See, there's obviously a lot of bits of stuff in here. And squash sauces, I think, tend towards the thicker side. Boy, that's good. Beautiful, beautiful color. Very vibrant. Sort of a reddish brown orange, I would say. It smells like heaven. In fact, let's just get on into it. It's a tad bit pulpy, but we have the wonderful flavor of those tomatoes. Definitely, tomatoes can really, really help out a hot sauce, I think. I'm trying to get some of these clumps out of here, down into the sauce rather than in the neck. But we've got the nice rich tomatoes. We've got the undercurrent of that lovely roasted butternut squash. We've got a very minimal, there's a bit of heat from the serranos. Very minimal. A lot of grit though from all the peppers in there. But you could really, really get a sense as well of the sort of fresh nature of the chipotles, the smoked jalapenos. Very, very nice. This is a wonderful sauce. Another definite gem in the Butterfield Bakery lineup, and I think they just did a fantastic job with. I don't know if they came up with the idea of let's make a warm, comforting hug of a sauce first, or if they made the sauce and they went, this is most what it's like, but that definitely applies here. You've got a nice sense of richness and a warmth of flavor. So we've got here, it's a little bit of pulled pork. And we'll gussy it on up here. Just gonna throw the sauce on it. Get a good amount there. Won't be shy. Because I was thinking, I was like, well, I don't necessarily want to go with burgers. But I was like, you know what would be good? It's a nice pulled pork sandwich. That would be wonderful with this. And so that's what we're going to have. And we're going to throw some cheese on it right here. And I'm going to go tra-la-la over to the microwave and heat this up to melt the cheese a little bit. And we'll be right back. Okay, and the cheese is slightly melted, a little bit there. Good enough for what we're doing. Let's make us a sandwich. Obviously got to have a bun. Nice soft bun here. Maybe we'll do a cross section. Let's see how much of this I can get on here without losing it. There we go. Choosing a sort of smoky food, as pulled pork often is. That's lovely. All right. Next, we need a couple scoops of coleslaw. Now, I made this fresh, and I made it as sort of a chili head coleslaw. And I actually filmed a short of me making it. And then I up and forgot to make sure the stupid audio was working. So I had all this really cool footage, but no audio. So I'll make it again at some point. Let's here we are here, like so, like yay. Let's put it together. Maybe we'll go with the cross section here. There's the cross section. Pretty nice. Pretty nice, if I do say so myself. All right, we'll start with this one. That is fantastic. So I always tell, younger persons who may ask me for advice, learning to cook is one of the best things you can do for yourself, because then you can make stuff like this. And if you like to have fun and fart around in the kitchen with experiments, you're less likely to come up with abominations. But you can make something like this. This is easily one of the best pulled pork sandwiches I've ever had. Every single component is balanced flawlessly. The smoke is there, but it's not overly prominent. Man. For the coleslaw, I used one of the pucker butt hot sauces. I think that's the peach habanero. It struck me as more of a vinegar. And it adds a little bit extra heat, to be sure, but also a nice little bit of sweetness. That's so good. Wow. And I've got quite a few more of these that I can have, so long as the pulled pork holds out. So I'll just say the odds are pretty good me having another one as soon as this video is over. Man, that's good. Let's have a little bit more here at the end. Actually, let's try some just on the coleslaw. I'm just curious. Oh my goodness, such a good sauce. This sauce, to me, tastes like a fall harvest. It's so good. And that's when when I was younger, I didn't live in an area that had constantly every single vegetable you could ever imagine. Or fruit. So it would be, and some of the stuff you had to plant yourself if you wanted it. So the fall was always when you see stuff like the roasted butternut squash and stuff a lot. And I think that's partly why fall is one of my favorite times of the year. There's just so much of the time and the memories of waiting until you could get to that point in the year where you could enjoy all this stuff. And it wasn't there all the time. It's even good on this. So you'd wait and you wait. And the anticipation of build up, and you finally get to fall, when everything was ready and all the harvest and stuff would start coming in, and you could have your roasted butternut squash or whatever, and a lot of squash, and you roast it and have it with just butter, or make it into a sauce, like a macaroni and cheese sort of sauce, or a soup of some kind. It was just warm and hearty. All those kinds of things. And to a large degree, like a lot of that I think is lost now. You know, which is better? Having everything you want pretty much on demand all the time, or having that sense of specialness because you're waiting for it and it's been building up and then you finally get it. And it's just this wonderful flavor that lives up entirely to what you were salivating for so long. And this definitely gets there. The pairing these two is really smart because a lot of the times in the fall, you know, you'd have a lot of fires and stuff, and you'd have a good sense of smoke in the air. You'd be leading into winter, but bonfires were kind of a big thing, whether it was school homecomings or whether it was just, you know, gathered around on a farm or whatever. And just pairing those just takes you right back to all those times. So putting those two together was super, super smart. And I mean, certainly tomatoes would be around, but tomatoes you almost never had to wait quite that long for. Tomatoes were a lot faster. You know, squashes could take a while. But just pairing all this stuff together is borderline magical, actually, as far as the flavor goes. So this is just another brilliant concoction from Butterfly Bakery. And I don't know that I would put this on everything. I think this is more where stuff like this, right, where it's sort of designed and then it comes together and is spectacular. I think that's the best use for this. Not to say you couldn't put it on a lot of stuff, though, because I don't know. I'm not quite sure where roasted carrots they mentioned as well. I don't know where this. I probably wouldn't put it on something like a mac and cheese. So that's just my own preference. So I like to have that vinegar hit. But I can see it working super well on breakfast foods. Pizza, I might not either. I don't necessarily like smokiness to pizza a great deal, but this is another one of those sauces that is really fun to play with. And also, you know, you can use a lot of it. It isn't that big punch of smoke. And I think that's part of the design, so that you could use just a lot of it. And this has two of my favorite aspects, both smoking something and also roasting it. I don't know if they use fire to roast stuff. Maybe not. They might just use the oven for the squash. It probably would be easier to use an oven, actually, for that. But there is a nice sense of the roasting in conjunction with the smoking. So this hits a lot of really... It ticks a lot of boxes, I guess, with me. But it is another fantastic offering from the ever-brilliant Butterfly Bakery. And I think especially if you're from some of the areas where fall and winter are some of the colder, fall everything dies and it starts to get into the colder stuff. If you're from one of those regions that isn't like where it's just warm all the time, but if you're from one of those other areas, I think this sauce will speak to you in a lot of ways as well. And we'll just leave it right there. So that was the Butterfly Bakery Chipotle Squash Hot Sauce. Number 4. In peace. to serve the flame.